All right, this video is to introduce you into the idea of a residual. When we have a scatter plot and we're drawing a model of best fit or an approximation to the model of best fit, it's very typical for the points from our scatter plot not to be exactly on the model. And so when we have something like this point here and our model in blue, this difference between our point and the corresponding point on the model, this is what we call a residual. This value is a residual. So let's see here, residual. And so as you can imagine, a model is going to have multiple residuals. So every point on here, the difference between that point's value, and I should say y value here, and the y value of the corresponding point on the line or the model, is that difference is what we call the residual. So really the residual is basically the error for each value between what we actually observed and what we predicted with the model. And that brings us to the definition of a residual. All right? So a residual is the difference between the observed y value and the predicted y value for a single x value. So that means that I could think of residual is equal to observed value minus the predicted value. Let's say I take a point over here on my graph. Let's say we take this one right here that we used to define our residual. Let's call this point A. And point A here has coordinates of 2, 8. And then we'll call another point down here on our model. I'm going to call it A prime because it's not actually one of my data points. So I'm going to call this one A prime. Just means it has a little apostrophe mark next to it. And its coordinates are 2, 4. So the 8 here, this 8 is what we would call our observed value. The 4 is what we would call our predicted value. So the residual of point A, so here we go, the residual of point A in our model is, and I would just take 8 minus 4, negative value of 4. If I make, let's see, another point over here, let's make this, we'll come down here, we'll call this one point B. And here on the bottom, this is point B. Point B has coordinates of 1, 2. And then we would have to look at a similar point on our model. So we have to go either straight up or straight down. So we'll look at this one right here. And so we're going to have still a difference in here between the predicted value for 1 and the observed value for 1. So I'll call that one B prime, just for the way we labeled the one for A. So we'll call this one B prime, and it has coordinates of 1, 3. Now remember, the coordinates I've listed in blue are our observed values. And when I say observed value, I'm specifically looking at the y, because you should notice that in the points, the x values are not changing. But the blue ones are observed y values. The red ones are predicted y values. Predicted values always fall on the model. Observed values are the points in our scatter plot. So here we have that the residual of point B, in this case, is 2 minus 3, or it's going to be equal to negative 1. So what you should notice here is that some residuals are going to be positive, some residuals are going to be negative. And so what happens is if a point is above the model, the residual will be positive. If a point is below the model, the residual will be negative. And it's just coming from our formula that we outlined above. So you want to make sure you're aware, if you're asked to find a residual, you want to make sure you're aware of this formula here, that it's the observed value minus the predicted value. And you want to make sure you understand that a predicted